All right, great. So, firstly, congratulations everyone for getting shortlisted for IIT Bombay. We have your seniors as well. I think Ayush is already connected. Great. So, quickly, guys, can you all first let's start with your experience, your journey from pre MBA to, how and you made it to IIT Bombay. How has life been here? And how did you go ahead with your first year? And I think Krish is also there, right? Hi, Krish. Yes, I can see you. Sindhu is still not connected. I think he'll join us soon. Great. So we can start with Ayush and Krish one by one. Just give us your background and your journey.
All right. Thanks a lot, ma'am. So first of all, it feels great to be back. So yeah, about my profile. So prior to coming for MBA, I had about 2 years of work experience, about 3 years of work experience actually. So I worked as a product manager in startups, like in a couple of startups before that. And so yeah, so I had IIT Bombay as my best call. Now, I was able to convert SJMSOM and I also converted FMS Delhi. Now, between the two, I actually chose SJMSOM, which is going to be perplexing for a lot of people here. But then, yeah, I did that. And post that, I think like the last 6, 7 months of MBA have been really good. I think they've been really rewarding. Learned a lot. I think, of course, a lot of sleepless nights as well. But then the journey as a whole has been really rewarding in terms of learning, in terms of growth, and in terms of meeting new people with new perspectives. So, yeah, overall, my experience with SOM has been great. And of course, the entire IITB ecosystem, like attending Mood Indigo, attending a Tech Fest, all of that kind of is just cherry on the cake. So, yeah, I can't recommend like IITB more. It's going to be a little biased right now, but then yeah, that's my experience been. So, Krish, over to you.
So hi everyone. So I did my bachelor's in business administration from IIM Rohtak. I was a IPM student there. Post which I gave my GAT and switched to SJMSOM IIT Bombay. So there's a very funny joke that goes around that I'm doing my IIM IIT the other way around. But then I'm a lot into finance, so I've done my CFA L1. I'm preparing for my L2. And the journey so far has been great. There have been a lot of opportunities on campus in terms of academics, in terms of the co-curriculars, the whole IITB ecosystem as such. So you get to attend a lot of sessions from a great speakers, and there are a lot of centers on campus. So yeah, it has been very rewarding so far.
Awesome, that's lovely. And how was it your interview experience like? Like, Ayush, you would have given multiple other interviews as well. So, what do you think made IIT Bombay's interviews very specific and different?
I think, yes. So I think one thing which stands out a lot about the, especially IIT Bombay interview, is that they're going to be long. So it's not like any other, like I gave a lot of other cap calls or even other IIM interviews. They're usually 15 minutes at max, right? But then with SGM SOM, one thing which is very specific is it's going to be a long interview. It will be almost 30 minutes. So you have to be in there, you have to be prepared, you have to be on your game because there are going to be questions about almost everything. So like whenever we are preparing for interviews, we have these different verticals that you're preparing for, right? You're preparing for current affairs, you're preparing on your own, like about your profile, maybe about why MBA, all these different questions, everything is going to be there. So ideally, if you are giving IIT Bombay interview, you have to be really well prepared because, as I said, unlike other interviews, it's going to test you on multiple fronts. Also, what happens is what's special about SGM interviews is the panel is made for you. So, unlike other calls where the panel is common for everybody, over here, what will happen is there'll be a specific panel which would be made specifically for you. So, for example, in case of Krish, because he was from finance background, he was doing CFA. His panel would have somebody who's a finance professor. There would be an alum who is probably working in finance, and then obviously be a IIT Bombay professor as well. So, yeah, so you have to be really well and really thorough about the subjects that you say as are your interest. Also in your form, you would have an option of selecting the preferences, right? That what are your preferences in terms of your interests. So your interview is going to be really driven by that. So that's one. And second is, again, as I said, because they're long interviews, what tends to happen is after a couple of questions, after 3, 4 long questions and counter questions, you tend to, become a little tired and a little fatigued. Like you kind of start giving into it, or you maybe are not up your game. Like you would give answers which are probably not the answers you should give. So, yeah, so that was my experience. Like the interview was long, but again, the interview was in a way very good because I was actually tested on everything. So sometimes what happens is you are asked one question and you get stuck with it. In other interviews, that is not going to happen in SJMSOM for sure. So you will be tested on everything. So that is what my experience was. Krish, maybe you can add something if you want to.
Specifically, in addition to what Ayush mentioned, a lot of these interviews tend to go a bit academic since the panel is tailored for you. And also, you wouldn't expect a lot of direct questions. The questions would come in some form of a application
Correct.
based or something related to what's going on currently. So there won't be any direct current affairs questions or questions around your academics that are straight out of the books. They'll try to relate it to your work experience, your background, or something that you're interested in. So that's one thing that you are sort of expected to have an opinion on whatever you're mentioning in your application.
Correct. Just to add something to that, so I'm an engineer, so I've done my electronics and telecommunication engineering in 2020. So I've passed out in 2022. So when I went for the interview, I had prepared a lot about my own academics, and given it's IIT, obviously I knew that I would get a lot of questions about my engineering subjects. But then they went into such depth that they asked me about some certain machine that I was working with during my work ex, and then they asked me about the diagrams and even about the wavelengths, and so it's going to get really technical if your workex or if your introduction that tell me about yourself has anything which is technical. So make sure that you are ready for 2, 3 level deep questions. For example, if you tell something about finance, you would be asked again and again about the same thing. So, so yeah, in that terms, you have to be like ready for questions which would be in depth. I'm not trying to scare anybody, but then yeah, you have to be ready with the depth about everything.
Lovely. No, Ayush, that's a very important point. Now, tell me, if you were to get into more specifics, what do you mean by 2, 3 level depth of questions so that, these people do not mess up and take it lightly when they're sitting for interviews?
Yeah, sure. So, for example, what happened in my interview was as soon as I entered, I was asked a couple of questions about. So, first of all, obviously, they asked me about myself, but then after that, they asked me a couple of questions about my work ex. Now, I have worked in a healthcare startup, and in healthcare, you use X-rays, right?
Hmm.
So, then they asked me about, okay, what's the difference between X-ray and maybe infrared? I don't remember exactly, but then they asked me about 2, 3 different spectrums of light. And then they were like, Ki, what's the difference between them? Now I was able to give the difference theoretically, and then they were like, okay, great. Maybe they passed a pen and paper to me, and they're like, Ki, draw the wavelengths for like draw a spectrum of wavelengths of all these different lights. So now that is something which you don't expect to remember, right?
Hmm.
Because you are like, Ki, I've done my engineering 3 years ago. I probably don't remember this. So I actually was not able to answer that. I told them that I'm not able to answer this. But then after that, they again asked me, okay, you know what? You are an ANTC engineer. What's your favorite subject? In terms of engineering. So I was like, "Ki, electronic components is something I like." So then they were like, "Ki, okay, fine. What's a MOSFET?" And I told them what's a MOSFET. Then they were like, okay, what are different types of MOSFET? And then I was able to give that answer as well. But then finally he was like, okay, again, here's the pen and paper and draw the diagram of a MOSFET. And that I did not remember. So now again, as because you think intuitively it's a business school interview, you don't
Hmm.
really think about these things. But then ideally, whatever favorite subject you are saying, pick a subject that you're actually good at. Like, for example, if I would have picked a subject like cloud computing, which I was actually good at, it would have probably played to my strength. But then during that time, I just felt like because they asked me in specific terms of ENTC, I picked that particular subject. I got a little bit caught up over there. But then, yeah, my other questions went fine. So I was able to sail through.
Lovely. That's great. And the other thing is, like, most of the faculties, if specifically for engineers, they themselves know the depth of it, right? They are,
Correct. Yeah,
been there, done that kind of a thing. So you should expect your in-depth questions. How about
correct.
you in terms of your questions, Krish? Like, apart from, like you mentioned, academic heavy questions, what is your academic background?
So since I've done a BBA, my interview sort of started with a few management theories, and but then it did not stop at what those theories meant. But then they asked me about where can these theories be applied? What is a relevant industry where this is, let's say, a theory A is more suitable than theory B. And also, I had some sort of an entrepreneurial inclination in one of my answers. So then that was one dominant theme that stretched through my entire interview. So uh, it started with what something as basic as what my idea was, and then it had a lot of counter questions on what is the kind of market size I'm looking at, who will be the target customers, what's if I am to start it right now, then what will be my, let's say, a 3 year or 5 year implementation plan for the same?
Okay.
How does sort of IITB come into that picture? So it had a
Right.
lot of
So,
like it
what
was
was your entrepreneurial idea, if you were to you share the
yeah.
details
So
with
I
the
was
students?
working on a financial literacy platform for teenagers, which was supposed to sort of transform into a wealth management platform that was tech enabled. So they asked me what were the kind of technologies that I was sort of exploring to be integrated into that app. Uh, am I looking at a more Gen Z and millennial customer base, or is it more towards the teenagers that will be taught through this platform? So uh, then was it like what was the market size, the TAM SAM?
Okay. Okay, that's interesting. And like, what do you think, both of you, this question's for you. Like, what extra things should they prepare specifically about SJMSOM or the programs, faculties that they can, get an edge over the others when they're talking about their interview prep?
I think one thing for sure, especially for engineers, this is my advice that when it's obvious that they'll ask you why SGM SOM, right? They'll probably ask you why do you want to come here. I would say don't give the answer saying it was my dream to come to IIT Bombay to do my engineering and that's why I want to come here because like honestly it sounds very cool in our head but then they've listened to it so many times that it does not make sense to them. So I would suggest that ideally if you are preparing for the interview, prepare in terms of what are the things that IIT Bombay has to actually offer. For example,
Hmm.
there are crazy amount of things that goes on the campus. For example, there's an innovation hub, there's Sign, there is this Aspire Research Park. There is a lab by Motilal Oswal for finance enthusiasts. Um, like think of a vertical. IIT Bombay would have something for it. Okay, like if you're interested in entrepreneurship, there's going to be Desai City School of Entrepreneurship. So idea is whatever your inclination is, just look up IIT Bombay's like arm for that particular inclination. You will find something, so you can give that in your answer. Second thing, as I said, these questions they will basically test you in a very all-round way. For example, in my interview, after all the dreaded questions about why WorkX, why MBA now, and all these difficult questions that you usually find hard to tackle, they asked me a question about what like have I seen Seinfeld, the show Seinfeld, and I actually had not seen the show. And then the faculty was like, okay, so what's your favorite show in that? Like, okay, if you not watch this, what's your favorite show? And I was like, okay, I like Suits, for example. And then we even spoke about Suits for a while. That okay, what do you think you can learn from Harvey Specter or anything of that sort? So, and the idea is that be very well rounded with your own hobbies as well, because they will definitely ask about it. And if you just give a generic thing like I like to read, they'll probably ask you what books, what kind of books, what genres, what authors, and then if you don't have the answer, it's going to be hard. So yeah, the idea is that whatever hobbies you mention, be very clear with that. For example, one of my batchmates, he just spoke about F1. He was like, "Ki F1 is my hobby," and they actually asked about which is the longest track in this year's season and which car is the most competitive. Because, as I said, like there's going to be a very high chance that the person who's sitting for the interview is very similar to your profile, so they might also have similar interests. So yeah, be very well rounded, and about the why IIT question, be well prepared. Like have a good question, good answer for that. Anything, Krish, you want to add?
Yeah, so what actually worked for me was that since finance was something that I was focusing on, I'd already read about the Citadel Securities Lab and the Motilal Oswal Center. So when they were to question me on why I was sort of leaving an IIM to get into an IIT, These were the things that I had highlighted, and I had also read about the kind of research that the professors in finance were doing on campus. And I sort of highlighted a few areas that sort of sparked my interest. And that was a good point to have a conversation for the next 5 minutes. And in case of my hobbies, I had mentioned Ladakh in one of my answers. It was related to photography. And then I would say literally 7 or 8 minutes of my interview was around Ladakh, its tourism industry. And it was generally a very informal conversation about what are the places that people generally visit. One of the professors had visited the same place. So we had a nice chat around that. So it generally eases the kind of flow that your interview will have, and it also releases a lot of pressure that you might be in during that interview.
Lovely. That's great. Before we let you guys, the YouTube family also go, one quick check will be, Krish, you are a non-engineer. And recently only IIT Bombay allowed for non-engineers. Did you have any difficulty in terms of, the adapting to the curriculum or the changes? Because, IIT Bombay has always been known for engineers.
So I did not have any such difficulty. It was generally cases there were cases where the learning curve was a bit steeper, but then the professors went the extra mile to sort of help me in subjects like, let's say, information systems or operations research. But then again, you also have a very diverse pool of peers that can always pitch in. So we have this two-way street where between even me and Ayush, whenever there's something, there's a course related to finance, we sit before the exams and sort of discuss the topics. Or if it's a course on information systems, Ayush is the one who teaches us. So there's no difficulty as such that you would face when adapting to the engineering part of it. The curriculum is generally similar to what a normal B school would have.
Awesome. That's really great. I think that's pretty much for the YouTube family. But one more thing, quickly, Ayush and Krish, what was your CAT percentile?
Mine was 99.76.
How about you,
Mine
Krish?
was 98.8.
Lovely. Guys, quickly on the chat, can you all also type in your CAT percentile? Let's see what percentile the calls have come this year. Okay, we have Preetham 97.89, Rajdeep 98.85, 99.72, 99.40, 93.55. Javik, engineer or non-engineer? 99.47, 97.47, 98.15, 96.60. Okay, Aman, you yourself are very sure that you are one of the last ones to get for GEM category. Lovely. Good, good, good. So great to see those good percentiles. Javik and Aman, you have got at a lower percentile than usually the call. So please make sure you turn the world upside down to convert this call. All right. Now, thank you guys for who have been listening to us on YouTube. You can get the link and join the sessions on this side as well also. The remaining conversation will be only for the CATKing students exclusively right now. Okay, all right. So guys, we have ended the session on YouTube. Now quickly, feel free to ask your